Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment. We're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this time we will talk about Loki and give an overall review and thoughts and impressions of the premiere episodes. Now there may be spoilers in this review, so I advise you now, if you haven't yet watched the episode, go over to Disney Plus, catch up with the overall events of the first installment, and then come back to this overall review. Now, Loki is the third television show from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, following Wandavision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, with Tom Hiddleston reprising the role that he started way back with the first Thor movie back in 2011, and has continued his role right through the first Avengers movie, Thor: The Dark World, Thor: Ragnarok, and also Avengers Infinity War. Now, with the same as Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki will consist of 6 episodes, consisting of around 40 to 50 minutes of runtime. Now, this will follow the adventures of Loki following the events of Avengers Endgame, where we saw him evade the capture from the Avengers using the Tesseract, and the episode opened up with that particular scene, and shortly afterwards we see him falling in the desert, being apprehended by the Time Variant Authority. Now, over the course of the episode, we learn that the Time Variant Authority was created by beings known as the Timekeepers, whose main role was to preserve the sacred timeline and look out for any entities who have strayed from the original timeline, and these are known as variants, who could potentially cause a multiverse of chaotic timelines throughout the universe. And this is various hints, of course, to the proposed plans of the MCU setting up the multiverse that we will see later on throughout its cinematic universe within Phase 4. Now, overall, in terms of this episode, I think it was a decent, very mildly entertaining opening episode. It wasn't overly spectacular. There was nothing too earth-shattering or groundbreaking, but I think it presented enough potential and ideas overall to keep me interested to see what happens within the next episode. Tom Hiddleston remains as engaging and charismatic as ever as Loki. He plays with this very much of the same tone and charisma that we saw him right throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I think there was a surprising novelty here, seeing Loki seemingly out of control and having to try and trick his way and maneuver his way out of the capture of the TVA. So I think that was a very surprising and very entertainment passage of play. Now, we see Loki throughout this time when he's taken to court, and he's primarily sentenced for being a variant, but then he's taken away by Agent Mobius, played by Owen Wilson, and we get some very good scenes here where we see Agent Mobius talking to Loki, going over all his previous deeds, and we see multiple previous clips from the previous entries within the MCU, and there was a good dynamic and I think chemistry between both Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson, and I think this episode tried to give Loki much more of that sensitive and layered arc, trying to present him much more of somebody who doesn't just perform these random acts of mischievous deeds throughout the cinematic universe. We see this later on in probably the most emotional part of the episode when he's tried to evade capture. We get some very funny scenes of when he's evading the guards, and then he goes back into the room, and then he essentially discovers what's going to happen to him in the future timeline when he sees the Chitauri invading. He of course see his mother dying from the Thor: The Dark World, and then he sees his ultimate death throughout Infinity War. And I think these are very good scenes, and I think Hiddleston did a very good job of just conveying a bit more of self-reflection and remorse throughout Loki. There were a couple of questions where we see him go in various rooms, and then we come across the Infinity Stones, and we do ask ourselves, how were they captured and why are they just remaining there? There was no links or hints to the events of Endgame, so I'm sure we will get further questions and answers as we proceed throughout the entire series. And also, if the Time Variant Authority intervene in between current events or variants that were strayed away from the original timeline, then it does beg the question again, where were they during the whole events of Avengers? In Infinity War, why didn't they intervene with Thanos? You know, he basically was destroying half of the universe, and you'd think the Time Variant Authority would deem that a major threat between the original sacred timeline, so why didn't they get involved? So this is again the ultimate problem that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has following the events of Avengers Endgame and dealing with the 5-year time jump as well. The other stories going forward, they really have to try and work their way into explaining what happens within the fallout of those events so far. So again, we'll see what develops much more throughout the series as we go on, but overall I think there was enough there to just keep me engaged throughout. Hopefully we'll get much more of Loki going through these various time realms and time zones as they try to chase down this variant. We saw very good shots, I think, of the world outside the TVA, where we see Agent Mobius and Loki looking at the skyline. We had that very kind of detailed cinematic construct of the city, very good visuals on there as well. And like I said, it will really hinge on Hiddleston's performance and how much energy he can compel throughout these various episodes as they throw various tasks and obstacles that he's got to overcome. So overall, I think it was mildly entertaining, as I said before, nothing special. I think it was a better start than WandaVision, but maybe not as good a start as what we saw from Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm pretty sure this will be a superior show to WandaVision overall, because I think with the 6-hour episodes there will be less bloat, less fat, less fooling around, and just deepening more into the story overall. And Tom Hiddleston, as I mentioned before, remains a very charismatic actor, so as long as he's in the lead and he gets lots of material to play off and play around, then I think this will be a thoroughly entertaining series and addition overall to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We did end quickly on that final scene where we see, I think it's in the 18th century, where we see that hooded figure. This is supposedly the other variant, whether it will be another version of Loki or another evil entity. And we see the agents chase him down, and then he burns them in the forest, and then he picks up the time device at the end. So again, that was a good little cliffhanger note to prepare us for the ongoing story for the second installment. And I'm sure we will get a lot more engaging and a lot more involving stories and narratives throughout the second and third episodes overall. So overall, a decent, overall satisfying opening premiere. I just hope we can pick up the pace in the second episode and provide us with a lot more meat to chew on, and hopefully we can get a clarity on exactly the time travel antics and explain much more why the Infinity Stones are there and where the time variant authorities were during the events of the previous Avengers movies, and hopefully we can get some alluding until the eventual multiverse that we'll see later on with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and assumingly with Spider-Man 3 as well. So those are my thoughts and feelings and quick impressions on Loki. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How well of a start do you think this has been compared to the previous Marvel shows on Disney Plus? Do you think this will end up being a superior show, or do you think it will be a weaker show? Are you more excited for the movies, in particular as the multiverse movies, as I mentioned before? Are you not that excited overall in seeing the story of Loki and where he eventually ends up? Let me know in the comments. Please also hit and like those subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality reviews like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.